I want to bring in Rick Newman. And Rick, when you just take a look at the headlines that are hitting right now from Bloomberg, what's your reaction?
I'm skeptical. I've been following this for the last year and a half, and there have been so many times when we heard there was a trade deal or almost a trade deal, including October 11th, which was 2 months ago, when Trump from the White House with the top Chinese negotiator there said, we have now reached a phase one trade deal. The only thing left to do is work out the details. So it's 2 months later, those details still have not been worked out. So I guess they might announce again today that they reached a phase one trade deal again.
So do you think it's nothing substantial is going to be included in this deal?
Bloomberg is, so the way Bloomberg is reporting this right now, they're saying the negotiators have agreed in principle and Trump now must approve that. We don't know where that's coming from. There's been a lot of leaking as part of the strategy in these negotiations, and I think the Chinese have gotten into the act. They've started to do some of the leaking, so sometimes what I think the Chinese are doing is putting out word that they think would be favorable to their side and might increase their leverage a little bit with Trump. It's possible that's what's happening here. So, I mean, I guess it's always possible that they actually did reach an agreement, but there have been so many false starts here that I think markets should just remain skeptical.
And it was interesting. We just had Desmond on talking about the fact that the Chinese economy is weak right now. I was asking about whether or not one side has a little bit more leverage than the other. You kind of just hinted at that. But as it stands right now, do you think one side has the upper hand in these discussions?
Everybody's trying to work that out. You know, I kind of feel like that's the wrong question or the wrong way to think about it. It's true that the Chinese economy is weakening, but the way I think about it is which side has the higher tolerance for pain. And I think China has shown a much higher tolerance for pain than Trump expected. I think a lot of people who have followed China for a long time, I think they're not surprised, but China has basically taken it. I mean, they've just taken the hit, and they have not given in the way Trump probably expected they would. And by the way, if anything actually does happen today or this week, it's going to be very limited. Remember, we're still talking about just phase one, whatever phase one is. We still don't know what phase one means. So it probably will be very limited. I think what Trump is trying to do at this point is find a way not to impose the tariffs that he said he was going to impose on Chinese imports on December 15th.
Why do you think
Sunday.
that is?
Because that would actually hurt the U.S. economy. So those would be tariffs on a lot of consumer goods and a lot of high-end consumer goods. It would be smartphones, it would be laptops, other things like that coming from China, and that would be a big set of Chinese imports, and those are consumer products. So that would be a tariff on goods going directly to consumers, unlike a lot of the products from China, the imports from China that have gotten tariffs so far. A lot of those have been components of other products, so it's easier for the manufacturers who use those things to sort of eat the cost or ask the Chinese supplier to eat part of the cost. And those have not really flown through to consumers, but when you start putting a tariff directly on finished consumer products, which is what would happen on the 15th, consumers are going to feel that, and that will show up in the broader U.S. economy.
Do you think that the U.S. can trust China? Because that's been the conversation that we've also been having now for quite some time. So it's even if there is some sort of deal that does come into effect, we don't know the exact details of it. But then the question out there is still that, can the U.S. trust what China's saying?
Well, I don't think the U.S. can trust China. But I also think China doesn't feel they can trust the United States. I mean, Trump has changed his mind on a lot of things. And I think that's part of the problem here is neither side trusts the other. So one of the things the U.S. negotiators have talked about a lot, and I think they're right about this, is if there is a deal in principle and China says, yes, we are going to do X, whether it's buy more U.S. farm products or actually do some of the reforms President Trump wants them to do, how do you prove that they're doing it? And if they're not doing it, what's your leverage? What's your recourse? So that has been a sticking point all along, and that is one of the reasons Trump has insisted he wants to keep the tariffs that he's already put in place. He wants to keep those there. Because if he feels like that is his leverage, that is part of the enforcement mechanism. If he removes the tariffs, then he's sort of, from Trump's perspective, he has less of ability to enforce whatever China says they're going to do. And by the way, China has not actually said they're going to do much. I mean, they have agreed to almost no concession at this point, and people who have been watching the Chinese economy for a long time don't expect China to agree to many of these concessions, because this is how they run their country. This is how they run their economy. And no proud country like China, including the United States, is going to say, sure, when some other country says we want you to change the way you manage your economy. We wouldn't do it either.
All right, thanks, Rick.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.